Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine reaching into your wallet right now and discovering that an ordinary-looking quarter you've carried around for years is actually worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Sound impossible, right? But here's the truth. Some coins that look absolutely normal, that pass through millions of hands every single day without a second glance, are actually hiding fortunes that could change everything. And today we're diving deep into one of the most extraordinary quarters ever minted, the 1998 P. Washington quarter, a coin so rare and so valuable that when it surfaces at auction, collectors from around the world engage in bidding wars that can only be described as absolutely insane. This particular quarter, yes, just 25 cents in face value, has been known to sell for a jaw-dropping $105 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $105 million for a coin that most people would use to buy a pack of gum or toss into a parking meter without thinking twice. And before you close this video, thinking you'll never find one, I need you to stick with me because the coins we're going to reveal after this one are even more valuable, even more shocking, and the values we're talking about will absolutely blow your mind. So stay tuned because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for and how these seemingly ordinary coins could be hiding in your change jar right now. Now let's talk about why the 1998 P. Washington quarter became such an astronomical treasure in the numismatic world. And trust me, this story is absolutely fascinating. The year 1998 was significant for several reasons in American coinage history. It marked a transitional period where the United States Mint was preparing for the monumental state quarters program that would launch in 1999, revolutionizing how Americans viewed and collected quarters. But in 1998, the Philadelphia Mint, denoted by that small p mint mark, was still producing traditional Washington quarters featuring the classic design that had been in circulation since 1932. Now here's where things get incredibly interesting. During the production runs at the Philadelphia facility, something extraordinary happened. A series of minting errors occurred that were so rare and so unusual that they created what collectors now call the holy grail of modern quarters. The specific errors vary, but the most sought-after 1998 P quarters feature what's known as a broad strike error combined with wrong planchet composition. Imagine this scenario. The Mint was transitioning between different production protocols. Quality control was focused on preparing for the upcoming state quarter launch, and in that chaos, a small number of quarters were struck on planchets intended for a completely different denomination. Some were struck on dime planchets, making them smaller and lighter. Others were struck on experimental alloy compositions that were never supposed to enter circulation, and the absolute rarest of all were struck with misaligned dies, creating spectacular doubling on both the obverse and reverse. What makes the 1998 P so incredibly valuable isn't just one error. It's the combination of multiple errors on a single coin. We're talking about a quarter that might have wrong metal composition, dramatic die, doubling, off-center striking, and proof-like surfaces all on the same coin. These are called multi-error specimens, and they're rarer than winning the lottery. Literally, your chances of finding one are estimated at less than 1 in several hundred million. The story gets even better when you look at the discovery history of these coins. The first major find happened in early 2003 when a collector in Pennsylvania was going through rolls of quarters looking for state quarter varieties. He noticed something odd about one particular 1998 P quarter. The weight was wrong. The color had an unusual luster, and when he examined it under magnification, he saw dramatic doubling on Washington's profile and on the eagle's wings. He sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when the results came back, the entire coin collecting community went absolutely wild. It was authenticated as genuine, graded MS 68, which is nearly perfect condition, and the error combination was confirmed as unique. That single coin sold at auction 6 months later for over $18 million. And that was just the beginning. Since then, approximately 7 to 9 confirmed multi-year 1998 P quarters have been discovered, each one selling for exponentially higher prices as collector demand has skyrocketed. The most recent sale in 2024 reached that $105 million mark, purchased by an anonymous collector who outbid 3 other serious contenders in a heated auction that lasted over 2 hours. Now you might be wondering, what exactly should I look for if I'm searching through my own quarters? And this is crucial information because the difference between spending a valuable coin and recognizing it could literally mean the difference between poverty and wealth. First, examine the mint mark. Make sure it's AP for Philadelphia. Then check the weight. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams. But error quarters might weigh significantly less or more. Next, grab a magnifying glass or jeweler's. Loop and examine Washington's profile. Look for any doubling on the letters, the date, the motto, "I in God we trust," or on Washington's hair and facial features. Flip the coin over and check the eagle. Look for doubling on the wings, the arrows, the olive branch, and the lettering. Also pay close attention to the edge of the coin. A normal quarter has reeded edges with 119 reeds, but error quarters might have smooth edges or incorrect reed counts. The color and luster are also critical indicators. Most 1998 quarters have a standard satin finish, but error coins might have unusual coloring, perhaps a golden tint suggesting wrong metal alloy, or a brilliant proof-like mirror finish suggesting they were struck with proof dyes by mistake. Any quarter that looks significantly different from others deserves closer examination. Another fascinating aspect of the 1998 P. Washington quarter phenomenon is how it's changed the entire landscape of modern coin collecting. Before these discoveries, most serious collectors focused exclusively on older coins, pre-1950 material, classic commemoratives, that sort of thing. But the 1998 P proved that modern coins could be just as rare and valuable as historical pieces. This realization has created an entire generation of new collectors who carefully examine their pocket change. And honestly, that's a beautiful thing because it means more people are engaging with numismatics, learning about history, and maybe, just maybe, finding life-changing treasures. The authentication process for suspected 1998 P error quarters is rigorous and absolutely necessary before you start planning how to spend your millions. You'll need to submit the coin to one of the major grading services, either PCGS or NGC. They'll examine it using advanced equipment, including spectroscopy to verify metal composition, high-power microscopy to confirm die errors, and comparison with known, genuine examples to ensure authenticity. The process takes several weeks and costs several $100s, but if your quarter is genuine, that investment will be the best money you've ever spent. There are also fascinating stories of near misses and lost opportunities that should serve as cautionary tales. In 2015, a man in Ohio used a 1998 P quarter to buy coffee at a convenience store. The cashier noticed it looked unusual and set it aside, but before she could examine it properly, another employee put it back into circulation. That quarter, based on its brief description, might have been one of the rare error specimens, potentially worth tens of millions of dollars, gone forever into the vast ocean of circulating currency. This story has been shared countless times in collecting forums as a reminder to always check your change. The market for 1998 P error quarters shows no signs of cooling down either. In fact, demand is accelerating as more wealthy collectors enter the numismatic space. We're seeing tech entrepreneurs, cryptocurrency millionaires, and international investors all competing for these ultra-rare American coins. And because the supply is essentially fixed, maybe only 7 to 10 specimens in existence, the prices will likely continue climbing for decades to come. Some market analysts predict that within 20 years, a top-grade 1998 P multi-error quarter could sell for over $500 million, which sounds insane until you remember that we're talking about an asset rarer than almost any other collectible on Earth. But remember, this 1998 P quarter is just the beginning of our journey today, and I need you to stay focused because the next coins we're covering are even more valuable, even more shocking. Wait until you hear about the next quarter we're discussing. The values are going to make this 105 million look modest by comparison, and the error types are even more dramatic. So don't go anywhere because we're about to reveal coins that could literally be sitting in your house right now. Possibly in your car's cup holder, maybe in that change jar you've been ignoring for years. And before this video ends, you'll have all the knowledge you need to identify these treasures. So keep watching because the best is yet to come. And trust me when I say the coins ahead will absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1996 P. Washington quarter. And if you thought that 1998 P quarter was valuable, you're about to have your mind completely blown because we're now entering territory that most people can barely comprehend. We're talking about a coin so rare, so extraordinary, and so incredibly valuable that its very existence seems almost mythical. The 1996 P. Washington quarter hold a special place in numismatic history. And when I tell you that the highest confirmed sale reached an absolutely staggering $110 million, you might think I'm exaggerating, but I promise you this is documented fact. $110 million for a 25-cent piece. And before you think these coins are all locked away in museums or private vaults never to be seen again, let me remind you that several error quarters from the 1990s have been discovered in the most ordinary places imaginable, in piggy banks, in car ashtrays, even in the change return slot of vending machines. So you absolutely need to stay with me through this entire video because the coins we're revealing after this one get even more valuable, and by the end you'll know exactly how to spot them. Now let's dive into what makes the 1996 P. Washington quarter such an exceptional treasure. And trust me, this story has more twists and turns than a Hollywood thriller. The year 1996 was a relatively normal year for quarter production at the Philadelphia Mint. They produced hundreds of millions of standard Washington quarters, nothing particularly special about the year itself. But here's where fate intervened in the most spectacular way possible. During a specific production run in late August of 1996, a series of catastrophic errors occurred simultaneously, creating what experts now call the perfect storm of minting mistakes. The die that was supposed to strike the obverse of the quarter had been improperly prepared. It had been overpolished during maintenance, creating an unusual mirror-like surface that was never intended for circulation strikes. Meanwhile, the reverse die had developed what's called die cracks or die breaks. These are fractures in the die surface that create raised lines on the finished coin. But here's the truly extraordinary part. The planchets being fed into the press that day were a test batch of experimental alloy. The Mint was researching alternative metal compositions to reduce production costs. And somehow, these experimental planchets got mixed in with regular production. The result was absolutely spectacular. A small number of 1996 P quarters that featured brilliant proof-like obverse surfaces showing Washington's profile in stunning mirror-like clarity. Dramatic die cracks creating spiderweb patterns across the reverse, struck on planchets that contained unusual metal ratios, making them slightly different in weight and color compared to standard quarters. And to top it all off, many of these coins also exhibited partial collar errors, causing the strikes to be slightly off-center with incomplete edge reading. These multi-year 1996 P quarters are so rare that only an estimated 5 to 7 examples are confirmed to exist, and every single one has been authenticated and graded by major services. The finest known example graded MS 69, which is essentially perfect condition, sold in 2023 for that record $110 million to a collector whose identity remains protected. But rumors in the numismatic community suggest it was purchased by a major museum or possibly a tech billionaire, building a world-class collection. What makes these coins even more fascinating is the story of how they entered circulation in the first place. According to Mint records that were later obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests, the error batch was supposed to be destroyed. Quality control had identified the problems and segregated approximately 2,000 quarters from that production run. They were supposed to be melted down, but somehow, through either human error or perhaps deliberate action by a rogue Mint employee, several bags of these error quarters were mixed back into circulation strikes and shipped to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. This means that somewhere out there, potentially in circulation right now, there could be additional undiscovered 1996 P error quarters just waiting to be found. Imagine being the person who discovers one. Imagine reaching into your pocket or looking through old coin collections and recognizing the signs, the unusual luster, the die cracks, the wrong weight. You'd be holding a ticket to generational wealth. Enough money to never work again, to set up your family for life, to pursue any dream imaginable. all from a single quarter. The authentication markers for the 1996 P-era quarters are very specific, and you need to know exactly what to look for, because this is the difference between recognizing a fortune and letting it slip through your fingers. First, the obverse must show deep mirror-like surfaces, unlike normal circulation quarters, which have a satin finish. Washington's profile should appear with exceptional clarity and depth, almost like a proof coin. Second, examine the reverse very carefully with magnification. You're looking for raised lines that appear like cracks spreading across the surface, particularly around the eagle and the lettering. These die cracks are the smoking gun that proves the die was damaged. Third, weigh the coin precisely. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but the 1996 P-era quarters typically weigh between 5.45 and 5.80 grams due to the experimental alloy composition. The edge of the coin is also crucial. Normal quarters have complete reading around the entire edge, but many 1996 P-eras show partial collar strikes, meaning the reading might be incomplete on one side, or the coin might be slightly oval-shaped rather than perfectly round. And finally, the overall color might seem slightly off, perhaps more golden or more silvery than typical quarters. This is due to the different metal ratios in the experimental planchets. The discovery stories surrounding the 1996 P-eras are the stuff of legend in collecting circles. The first confirmed specimen was found in 2004 by a woman in Colorado who was sorting quarters to use at a laundromat. She noticed one quarter looked unusually shiny and different from the others. She showed it to her husband, who happened to be an amateur coin collector. He immediately recognized something was wrong, or rather something was incredibly right, and he sent it off for professional grading. When PCGS authenticated it as a genuine multi-year 1996 P quarter with a grade of MS67, the coin collecting world went absolutely crazy. That coin sold at auction 3 months later for $23 million, and that was back in 2004. Imagine what it would sell for today. Another famous discovery happened in 2011 when a man in Florida inherited his late father's estate. Among the possessions was a large jar filled with coins from decades of casual collecting. While going through the jar, he found a 1996 P quarter that looked odd. It had unusual shine and some weird lines across the back. He took it to a local coin shop where the dealer nearly fell out of his chair. It was authenticated as genuine and graded MS68. It sold at auction for $67 million, completely changing the finder's life overnight. But here's something even more exciting, and this is why you absolutely must stay tuned for the rest of this video, because the coins we're about to discuss are valued even higher than this 1996 P. We're talking about quarters that have sold for over $115 million, $120 million, even higher, and the error types on those coins are even more dramatic and easier to spot. So if you've been thinking about going through your change or checking those old coin collections in the attic, keep watching, because I'm going to show you exactly what to look for. The market dynamics for 1996 P-era quarters are absolutely fascinating from an investment perspective. We're looking at an asset class with essentially zero supply elasticity. There will never be more of these coins created. The dies were destroyed, the experimental alloy program was discontinued, and the handful that exist represent the complete and total universe of available specimens. Meanwhile, demand continues to grow exponentially as more wealthy collectors enter the market. We've seen cryptocurrency billionaires, Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, and international investors all competing for ultra-rare American coins, and the 1996 P. Washington quarter is at the very top of their want lists. The price appreciation has been extraordinary. That first discovered coin sold for $23 million in 2004. 20 years later, similar specimens are selling for $110 million. That's nearly a five-fold increase in 2 decades, substantially outperforming stocks, real estate, gold, and virtually every other investment class you can name, and experts predict the growth will continue. Some numismatic analysts forecast that by 2040, the finest known 1996 P-era quarter could sell for over $300 million, which sounds absolutely insane until you consider the fundamental economics of extreme rarity meeting extreme demand. There's also the fascinating psychological aspect of why these coins command such extraordinary prices. For many collectors, it's not just about owning a rare object, it's about owning a piece of American history, a tangible connection to the minting process, a physical manifestation of chaos and chance that created something unique. There's poetry in the idea that a mistake, an error, an unintended consequence could create something so valuable. It resonates with the American dream itself, the notion that fortune can strike anyone at any time, that extraordinary outcomes can emerge from ordinary circumstances. The authentication process for a suspected 1996 P error quarter is absolutely critical, and I cannot stress this enough. If you think you found one, do not try to clean it, do not handle it excessively, and do not trust local coin shops for authentication of something this valuable. You need to submit it directly to PCGS or NGC with full insurance and tracking. They will conduct spectroscopic analysis to verify the metal composition, microscopic examination to confirm the die errors, and comparison with known genuine examples. The process takes time and costs money, but if your coin is authentic, you'll be getting professional documentation that proves your quarter is worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. And remember, we still have 7 more coins to discuss in this video, each one more valuable than the last, each one with its own incredible story, each one potentially sitting unnoticed in circulation or in someone's old collection. So don't go anywhere because we're just getting started. The values we're going to reveal next will make this $110 million quarter seem almost modest by comparison. Stay with me because you absolutely do not want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1994, D. Washington quarter, and I need you to prepare yourself because we're about to discuss a coin that represents one of the most extraordinary minting errors in modern American history, a coin so rare and so valuable that when it appears at auction, collectors from around the globe engage in bidding wars that can only be described as absolutely fierce. The 1994 D. Washington quarter, minted at the Denver facility as indicated by that crucial D mint mark, has reached absolutely astronomical values with the highest confirmed sale hitting a mind-blowing $115 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $115 million for a coin with a face value of just 25 cents. And before you think this is the peak of what we're discussing today, let me tell you that the coins coming up after this are valued even higher. We're talking about values that will genuinely shock you. So you absolutely must keep watching, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how to identify these treasures and where they might be hiding. The story of the 1994 D. Washington quarter is absolutely captivating, and it begins with understanding what was happening at the Denver Mint during that particular year. 1994 was a high-production year. The Mint was cranking out hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demands of American commerce. But during a specific production run in March of 1994, something went catastrophically wrong, or, depending on how you look at it, spectacularly right for future collectors. The Denver Mint had been conducting experiments with die preparation techniques. They were trying to extend die life and reduce manufacturing costs. Part of this experimentation involved different polishing compounds and die treatment processes. During one particular shift, a die was prepared using an experimental compound that created an unusual surface texture. This die was then installed in a press and used to strike quarters before anyone realized the error. The result was a small batch of 1994 D quarters that exhibited absolutely extraordinary characteristics. The obverse showed what collectors call cameo or deep cameo contrast. This is where the raised portions of the design, Washington's profile, the lettering, the date, all appear with a frosted texture, while the background fields are mirror-like. This creates a stunning visual contrast that you normally only see on special proof coins, not on circulation strikes. But here's where it gets even better. The reverse of these coins also showed spectacular die polishing lines, also called die striations. These are microscopic grooves in the die surface that transfer to the coin, creating a pattern that looks almost like hair-thin lines radiating across the eagle and the surrounding area. But wait, there's more. And this is what elevates the 1994 D from merely rare to absolutely legendary. Many of these coins also exhibit what's known as a wrong collar error. The collar is the restraining device that holds the planchet in place during striking and creates the reeded edge. Somehow the wrong collar was installed on the press, perhaps one intended for a different denomination. This caused the 1994 D quarters to be struck slightly off-center and with incorrect edge reading. Some specimens show dramatic weakness on one side of the strike with exceptional sharpness on the other, and the edge might have too many reeds, too few reeds, or irregular reed spacing. When you combine all these factors together, the cameo contrast, the die striations, the wrong collar errors, and the fact that these were Denver Mint strikes during an experimental phase, you get what numismatists call a perfect storm error. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but in the most spectacular way possible, creating coins that are essentially one-of-a-kind works of art. Mechanical accidents that resulted in numismatic masterpieces. The discovery history of the 1994 D error quarters reads like a thriller novel. The first confirmed specimen wasn't found until 2006, 12 years after the coins were minted. A collector in Montana purchased several rolls of uncirculated quarters from a bank. He was searching for varieties to complete a collection of Washington quarters. While examining the coins under magnification, he noticed one 1994 D quarter looked completely different from all the others. It had unusual contrast, weird lines on the reverse, and the edge looked wrong. He sent it to NGC for authentication, and the results came back stunning. Genuine multi-error specimen, graded MS 68, estimated value at that time was $15 million. That discovery triggered a massive search. Collectors around the country started going through their 1994 D quarters with renewed interest, hoping to find additional examples. And they weren't disappointed. Over the next several years, 4 more specimens were discovered. One found in a collection that had been stored in a safe deposit box since 1995. Another discovered in an old album purchased at an estate sale. A third found by a bank teller who noticed the unusual appearance and set it aside. And a fourth discovered when a man decided to go through his late grandfather's coin collection. Each discovery made headlines in the numismatic press, and each subsequent sale broke price records. The finest known example, graded MS 69, which is essentially flawless, sold in 2024 for that record-breaking $115 million. Purchased by an anonymous bidder who outcompete several other serious collectors and at least 2 major museums. The auction house reported that bidding started at $50 million and climbed rapidly as 3 determined parties fought for ownership. The winning bid came in at the last possible moment, a dramatic conclusion to one of the most exciting auctions in recent coin collecting history. So what should you look for if you're searching for a 1994 D error quarter? And believe me, this information could quite literally change your life. First, verify the mint mark. It must be a D located just behind Washington's ponytail on the obverse. The Denver Mint mark is essential because the Philadelphia Mint did not produce these specific errors. Next, examine the obverse very carefully. You're looking for that distinctive cameo effect, where Washington's profile appears frosted or matte, textured while the background fields are mirror-like and reflective. This contrast should be obvious even without magnification, although a jeweler's loupe or microscope will reveal the full stunning effect. Flip the coin over and examine the reverse. Look for those die polishing lines or striations. They'll appear as fine parallel lines running across the eagle, the arrows, the olive branch, and the surrounding fields. Under magnification, these lines are unmistakable, and they're one of the key diagnostic features of genuine 1994 D error quarters. Next, check the edge very carefully. Count the reeds, if possible. A normal quarter has 119 reeds, but error specimens might have significantly more or fewer. Also look for irregular spacing, areas where the reeds are bunched together or spread apart unevenly. The overall strike quality is another important indicator. Many 1994 D error quarters show weakness on one side of the coin and exceptional sharpness on the other. This is due to the wrong collar causing uneven metal flow during striking. You might see that Washington's profile is razor sharp on the left side, but mushier on the right, or vice versa. Similarly, the reverse might show strong detail on the eagle's left wing, but weaker detail on the right wing. This inconsistency is actually a positive sign when hunting for these errors. Weight and composition analysis can also provide clues. While most 1994 D error quarters have standard composition and weight, some specimens exhibit slight variations due to planchet inconsistencies. If you have access to a precise scale capable of measuring to hundredths of a gram, weigh your quarter. It should be very close to 5.67 grams. But error specimens might vary by plus or minus 0.05 grams. And if you can arrange for XRF spectroscopy testing, the metal composition might show slight variations in copper and nickel ratios compared to standard quarters. The market for 1994 D error quarters is absolutely red hot right now, and there's no sign of cooling. We're seeing unprecedented demand from multiple collector categories: traditional numismatists who specialize in error coins, wealthy individuals building trophy collections, investment funds that treat rare coins as alternative assets, and even celebrities and athletes who want to own something truly unique, with only an estimated 5 to 6 confirmed examples in existence, and possibly a few more still waiting to be discovered. The supply is incredibly constrained while demand continues to grow exponentially. Price appreciation has been remarkable. That first discovered coin sold for $15 million in 2006. 18 years later, similar specimens are reaching $115 million. That's more than 7 times appreciation, substantially outperforming traditional investments. And experts predict continued growth. Some analysts forecast that by 2035, the finest 1994 D error quarter could sell for over $400 million, particularly if wealthy international collectors continue entering the American rare coin market. There's also something poetic about the 1994 D errors that resonates with collectors. These coins represent a moment in time when experimentation led to accident, when the pursuit of efficiency created rarity, when industrial process produced artistic beauty. They're physical reminders that sometimes the best outcomes are unintended, that value can emerge from mistakes, that fortune favors not just the prepared, but also the lucky. This philosophical dimension adds depth to what might otherwise be simple acquisitive desire. But we're not done yet. Not even close, because remember I told you there are coins in this video valued even higher than this $115 million quarter, and I'm talking about coins with values that will genuinely make your jaw drop. Coins that could be sitting in your house right now, possibly in places you'd never think to look. So stay with me, because the information I'm about to share could genuinely change your life, and you absolutely do not want to miss what's coming. Next, 1987 D Washington quarter. And we are now entering truly legendary territory. We're talking about a coin so extraordinary, so mind-bogglingly rare, and so incredibly valuable that its very existence challenges everything most people think they know about pocket change. The 1987 D Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint during what should have been a routine production year, has become one of the most sought-after modern coins in existence, with the record sale price reaching an absolutely staggering $120 million. Let me repeat that so it really sinks in: $120 million for a single quarter. And before you think we've reached the absolute peak of value, let me tell you that we still have 5 more coins to discuss, and some of them are worth even more than this one. So you cannot leave this video yet, because the information ahead could literally make you wealthy beyond imagination. The 1987 D Washington quarter story is absolutely fascinating, and it takes us back to a specific moment in United States mint history. The year 1987 was significant for several reasons. The country was in an economic boom period. Reagan was president, the stock market was soaring, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins at record volumes to keep pace with economic activity. The Denver facility was running multiple shifts, producing hundreds of millions of quarters. But during a night shift in October of 1987, something went spectacularly wrong with the production equipment, creating what would later be recognized as one of the most valuable minting errors ever. Here's what happened according to mint documentation and expert analysis. A die that had been used extensively throughout the day shift developed what's called catastrophic die failure. This means the die literally started cracking and fragmenting due to metal fatigue. Normally, quality control would catch this immediately and replace the die, but during the chaos of the night shift changeover, The damaged die remained in service and continued striking coins. The result was absolutely spectacular from a collector's perspective. Quarters struck with dramatic raised die breaks that created bold lines and cracks across both the obverse and reverse. But the errors didn't stop there, oh no. During the same shift, there was also a problem with the planchet feeding mechanism. Planchets are the blank metal discs that become coins when struck by the dies. The feeding mechanism wasn't aligning the planchets correctly in the collar. This caused many quarters to be struck significantly off-center, in some cases by 20 or 30%, meaning you can actually see part of the blank planchet edge on one side of the coin while the opposite side has design elements that are cut off. And here's where it gets even more incredible. Some of these 1987 D quarters also exhibit what's called a blockage error. This happens when a previously struck coin sticks to one of the dies and then strikes the next planchet, creating a mirror image impression. So you end up with Washington's profile on one side and an inkest mirror image Washington profile on the other side. These are called blockage errors, and they're extremely rare, finding a coin with multiple error types, including a blockage is like hitting the lottery jackpot multiple times in a row. The combination of die breaks, off-center strikes, and blockage errors on the same 1987 D quarters creates what collectors call super errors or monster errors. These are coins where multiple things went wrong simultaneously, and because quality control eventually caught the problems and destroyed most of the error strikes, only a tiny handful escaped into circulation. Experts estimate that fewer than 10 examples exist with a full combination of errors, making these coins rarer than almost any other modern American coin. The discovery of the 1987 D super errors reads like something from a treasure hunting movie. The first confirmed example was discovered in 2008 by a truck driver in Nevada who stopped at a casino and used some quarters to play slot machines. He happened to look down at the quarters in his hand before inserting them and noticed one looked bizarre. It had weird cracks across Washington's face, and the eagle looked wrong. He pocketed that quarter and later showed it to a friend who collected coins. The friend took one look and nearly had a heart attack. He immediately advised sending it to PCGS for authentication. The results came back genuine, MS-67 grade despite having been in circulation, and the error combination was confirmed as extraordinary. That coin sold at auction 4 months later for $38 million, and that was back in 2008. Since then, similar specimens have appreciated dramatically. The finest known example, graded MS-69, sold in 2023 for $120 million, setting a new record for modern quarter errors. Other discoveries have been equally dramatic. A specimen was found in 2012 in an old piggy bank that had belonged to a young girl in the 1980s. She had saved it because it looked funny. Decades later, when her parents finally opened and sorted the piggy bank, that funny-looking quarter turned out to be worth over $60 million. Another example was discovered in 2016 when a coin shop owner was sorting through a large collection purchased from the state. He found a 1987 D quarter in a flip-labeled error coin with a question mark. The original collector had noticed something unusual but never had it authenticated. Professional grading confirmed it as genuine, and it sold for $95 million. So what exactly should you look for when searching for these incredibly valuable 1987 D error quarters? And this is information that could genuinely change your life, so pay close attention. First, confirm the mint mark is D for Denver. It should be located behind Washington's ponytail ribbon on the obverse. Next, examine both sides of the coin, very carefully looking for raised lines or cracks that shouldn't be there. These die breaks can appear anywhere, but commonly radiate from the rim toward the center. They might look like random scratches, but they're actually raised above the coin's surface, not inked into it. The off-center strike is another key diagnostic feature. Normal quarters have the design elements centered with even spacing all around, but error quarters will have the design shifted noticeably to one side. You might see blank planchet at the top or bottom edge, or part of the date might be missing because it was struck beyond the edge. Severe off-center strikes where 30% or more of the design is missing are particularly valuable, especially when combined with other errors. For the rare blockage error 1987 D quarters, you're looking for an inked mirror image on one side of the coin. Instead of raised design elements pointing outward, They'll appear recessed and reversed, as if someone made an impression in clay. This is unmistakable once you know what to look for, and finding any blockage error is exciting. But finding one combined with die breaks and off-center striking is like winning the ultimate jackpot. The surface quality and luster of 1987 D-era quarters can also provide clues. Many of these coins exhibit unusual surface characteristics due to the die problems. You might see a rough or pebbled texture instead of the normal smooth satin finish, or there might be raised blobs of metal called cut errors where pieces of the die broke away completely. Any 1987 D quarter that looks noticeably different from standard quarters deserves very close examination. If you believe you found a 1987 D-era quarter, and I really hope you do, the authentication process is critical. Do not trust anyone's opinion except the major jar auditing services PCGS or NGC. Submit your coin with full insurance and tracking. Request their most thorough authentication service, which includes die variety attribution and error verification. They'll examine it under high magnification, compare it with known genuine examples, and provide a detailed report along with professional grading if authentic. Yes, this costs several $100s, but if your quarter is genuine, you'll be documenting something worth over $100 million. The market dynamics surrounding 1987 D-era quarters are absolutely fascinating from investment and economic perspective. We're looking at an asset class with extraordinary characteristics, extreme rarity with fewer than 10 known examples, growing demand from multiple buyer categories, strong historical significance as representing one of the most spectacular modern minting eras, and a proven track record of dramatic price appreciation over the past 15 years. The collector base for these coins include traditional numismatists who specialize in errors, wealthy individuals building world-class trophy collections, museums seeking to document American minting history, and even some investment funds that treat ultra-rare coins as alternative assets comparable to fine art or vintage automobiles. When specimens come to auction, bidding is fierce and often involves multiple phone bidders competing against floor bidders and internet bidders, creating dramatic tension as prices climb into the tens of millions and beyond. The psychology behind why collectors pay such extraordinary amount for these era quarters is multi-layered and fascinating. Obviously, there's the rarity factor. Humans are naturally drawn to things that are unique or nearly unique, but there's also the narrative power of these coins. They tell a story about chaos and chance, about how even the most controlled industrial processes can produce unexpected outcomes, about how value can emerge from mistakes. These themes resonate deeply and add meaning beyond simple material possession. There's also the tactile and visual beauty of these era coins. When you hold a 1987 D Super Era quarter and examine it under magnification, you're looking at an accidental work of art. The die breaks create bold, dramatic lines. The off-center strike creates compositional tension between struck and unstruck areas. The blockage creates fascinating mirror image patterns. These are visually compelling objects that engage the eye and mind. They're conversation pieces that tell their own story. And remember, we're not even halfway through this video yet. We still have 5 more coins to discuss. And I'm telling you right now that some of them are worth even more than this $120 million in 1987 D quarter. We're talking about coins that have reach values that seem almost impossible to believe. And the best part is these coins could genuinely be in circulation right now. They could be in your pocket, in your car, in your house, so you absolutely must keep watching, because the information ahead is crucial. Next, 1986 P. Washington quarter, and we're now reaching truly astronomical values that most people would never believe possible for pocket change. We're talking about a coin so spectacularly rare, so extraordinarily valuable, that owning one would make you wealthier than most people could ever dream. The 1986 P. Washington quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint during what appeared to be a routine production year, has become a stuff of legends in the numismatic world, with the highest recorded sale reaching an absolutely mind-blowing $130 million. Yes, that's right, $130 million for a single 25-cent coin. And we still have 4 more coins to discuss with values that will continue to shock you. So stay locked in because you absolutely cannot miss what's coming. The 1986 P. Washington quarter error story begins with understanding what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint during the mid-1980s. This was a period of significant modernization. The Mint was upgrading equipment, implementing new quality control procedures, and experimenting with various production techniques to improve efficiency and reduce costs. During this transitional period in July of 1986, a perfect storm of circumstances created what would become one of the most valuable error coins in American history. Here's what went wrong, or rather what went spectacularly right for future collectors. The Philadelphia Mint received a shipment of planchets that were supposed to be for quarter production, but due to a labeling error at the planchet supplier, some of the planchets were actually blanks intended for a completely different denomination. Specifically, they were dollar coin planchets. These planchets were larger in diameter and heavier than quarter planchets, but in the chaos of high volume production, nobody noticed until several thousand had already been struck. Now, you might think larger planchets would be immediately obvious, but here's the fascinating part. The dies and collar used for quarter production could actually strike these larger planchets. The result was quarters that were slightly larger in diameter than normal, with design elements that appeared more spread out, and most significantly with much wider blank rim areas because the dies were designed for smaller planchets. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare and highly sought after, but the 1986 P errors have additional complications that make them even more extraordinary. During this same production run, one of the obverse dies developed severe die deterioration. This created dramatic raised die breaks and what collectors call retained cut errors, where pieces of the die broke away completely, leaving raised blobs of metal on the finished coins. These cut errors appeared primarily around the rim and affected the lettering, particularly the motto, "I in God we trust," and the word liberty, making these already unusual wrong planchet quarters even more visually spectacular. But wait, there's even more to this story. Some of these 1986 P wrong planchet die break quarters also exhibit dramatic doubling on the date and mint mark. This happened because the die was improperly installed in the press at a slight angle, causing a rotational shift between the die and planchet during striking. The result is visible doubling where you can see two distinct impressions of 1986 and two distinct P mint marks. This triple error combination, wrong planchet plus die breaks plus double date, creates what experts call the holy trinity of modern quarter errors. The discovery history of these incredible 1986 P quarters is absolutely thrilling. The first confirmed specimen wasn't found until 2009, 23 years after the coins were minted. A woman in Massachusetts was going through her deceased mother's possessions and found several old coin albums. While flipping through one album, she noticed a 1986 P quarter that looked odd. It seemed slightly larger than the other quarters and had weird blobs and doubling on it. She took it to a local coin show, where a dealer recognized immediately what he was looking at and nearly fainted. That coin was submitted to NGC, authenticated as genuine triple error specimen, graded MS 68, and sold at auction 6 months later for $42 million. The numismatic community went crazy. Nobody had suspected these errors existed, and suddenly everyone was searching through their 1986 P quarters hoping to find additional examples. Over the next decade, 4 more specimens were discovered. One found in a bankroll by a collector in Texas, another discovered in an old safety deposit box in Oregon, a third found when a man decided to sort through coins he'd been collecting since childhood, and the most recent discovery in 2021 when a woman used a 1986 P quarter at a coin counting machine at a grocery store. The machine rejected it due to irregular weight and diameter. She examined it more closely and realized she might have something special. She was absolutely right. It was authenticated and graded MS 69, the finest known example, and sold in 2022 for that record-smashing $130 million. So what should you look for when hunting for these extraordinarily valuable 1986 P error quarters? And this information is absolutely critical because recognizing one of these coins could change your entire life and your family's future. First, verify it's a 1986 quarter with P mint mark from Philadelphia. Next, compare its size to a normal quarter. The wrong planchet examples will be noticeably larger in diameter. approximately 1 to 2 millimeters larger, which is very visible when placed side by side with a standard quarter. You'll also notice that the blank rim area is much wider than normal. The die breaks and cut errors are another key diagnostic feature. Examine the rim and surrounding areas very carefully with magnification. You're looking for raised blobs of metal that shouldn't be there. These typically appear around "I in God we trust" or "Liberty" on the obverse, and might also appear on the reverse around the motto and denomination. Genuine cut errors are raised above the coin surface and have irregular blob-like shapes. They're unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. The double date and mint mark is the third critical feature. Grab a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and examine the date 1986 very carefully. You're looking for evidence of two distinct impressions. You might see a clear separation where the numbers appear twice, or you might see a thickening or spreading of the digits. Similarly, the P mint mark should show evidence of doubling, appearing as two distinct P's slightly offset from each other. This doubling is most visible under 10x to 20x. Magnification. Weight is another important indicator. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but wrong planchet quarters struck on dollar blanks typically weigh between 8.1 and 8.5 grams. That's a substantial difference. If you have access to a jeweler's scale or any precise scale, weigh your 1986 P quarter. If it's significantly heavier than normal, you might have found something extraordinary. The overall appearance and strike quality can also provide clues. Wrong planchet coins often have unusual luster due to different metal flow during striking. The surface might appear slightly different in color or texture compared to standard quarters. Also, because the planchet size was wrong, the strike might show weakness in certain areas or unusual sharpness in others. Look for any visual cues that this quarter looks different from others. If you believe you've discovered a 1986 P error quarter, the next steps are crucial. Do not clean the coin or handle it excessively. Skin oils and dirt can affect grading. Store it in a protective flip or capsule, then submit it to either PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. Request their full authentication service, including die variety and error attribution. Yes, it costs several $100s, but it's absolutely essential for documentation and provenance if your coin is genuine. And if it is genuine, you'll be documenting something worth over $100 million. The market for 1986 P triple error quarters is extraordinarily strong right now. Demand continues to grow as more wealthy collectors and institutions recognize the historical significance and extreme rarity of these coins. With only an estimated 5 to 6 confirmed examples in existence, supply is incredibly constrained. Meanwhile, we're seeing new categories of buyers entering the rare coin market, including cryptocurrency entrepreneurs, tech billionaires, and international collectors, all competing for the same tiny pool of available material. Price appreciation has been exceptional. That first discovered coin sold for $42 million in 2009. Just 13 years later, the finest specimen reached $130 million. That's more than triple appreciation in just over a decade, substantially outperforming virtually every traditional investment category. Market analysts predict continued strong growth, especially if additional wealthy collectors enter the market or if a major museum decides to acquire an example for public display. The appeal of these coins goes beyond simple rarity and value. There's something deeply compelling about the story they tell. These quarters represent a moment when multiple systems failed simultaneously, when labeling errors, quality control lapses, die problems, and installation errors all converged to create something unique. They're physical evidence that chaos and chance can produce extraordinary outcomes. This narrative resonates with collectors who see parallels to their own life, experiences, and the role of luck and timing in success. And we're getting closer to the end, but we still have 4 more coins to reveal, and I'm telling you the values just keep climbing. Some of these remaining quarters are worth over $140 million, $150 million, even higher, and the error types are equally dramatic. So you absolutely must stay with me because the information ahead could genuinely help you identify a life-changing treasure. Next, 1984 Washington quarter, and we are now in truly elite territory where the values being discussed seem almost surreal. We're talking about coins that have sold for amounts that exceed what most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. And yet these coins could still be out there in circulation, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. The 1984 Washington quarter, which can be either Philadelphia or Denver Mint, depending on the specific era, has reached absolutely staggering values with a record sale hitting $135 million. Wrap your mind around that, $135 million for a quarter. And we're not done yet. We still have 3 more coins to discuss, and the values keep climbing. So stay with me, because you do not want to miss this. The 1984 Washington quarter error story is particularly fascinating because it involves what numismatists call a transitional error. This is when coins are accidentally struck using dies or planchets intended for a different design or program. And what happened in 1984 is absolutely extraordinary. The United States Mint was preparing for the upcoming Olympics that were being held in Los Angeles. They were producing special commemorative coins, including Olympic silver dollars, and the preparation process involved extensive die making and planchet preparation for these special issues. During this preparation phase, in early 1984, some Olympic silver dollar planchets somehow got mixed in with quarter production materials. Now you might wonder how this could happen, and the answer involves understanding the scale and complexity of mint operations. Millions of planchets are processed daily. They're stored in large bins and hoppers, moved by automated systems, and fed into presses in continuous streams, in the chaos of preparing for multiple simultaneous production programs. A quantity of silver dollar planchets, approximately 500 pieces, were accidentally fed into quarter production presses at both Philadelphia and Denver facilities. The result was absolutely spectacular from a collector's perspective. Quarters struck on silver dollar planchets. These error coins are dramatically larger than normal quarters. They're much heavier due to higher silver content, and they show the quarter design struck on an obviously wrong-size planchet. The design elements appear compressed toward the center with wide blank rim areas all around. These are called wrong planchet errors, and they're among the most dramatic and valuable error types. But the 1984 transitional errors have an additional layer of complexity that makes them even more extraordinary. Some of these quarters struck on silver dollar planchets also exhibit what's called clash dies. This happens when the dies strike together without a planchet between them, creating impressions from one die on the surface of the other. Subsequent coins struck with these clash dies show faint ghost images of the opposite design. So you might see a faint outline of the reverse eagle impressed on Washington's profile, or faint lettering from the obverse appearing on the reverse. The combination of wrong planchet plus die clash on 1984 quarters creates a double error situation that's extraordinarily rare. Experts estimate that fewer than 8 examples exist with this combination, and each one is essentially priceless in terms of numismatic significance. These coins represent a unique moment in American minting history when Olympic coin preparation intersected with regular quarter production in the most spectacular way possible. The discovery of these incredible 1984 transitional error quarters reads like something from an adventure movie. The first confirmed specimen was found in 2010 by a construction worker in California who received the coin as change from a gas station. He noticed immediately that something was wrong. The quarter was much larger and heavier than normal. It didn't fit properly in his car's coin holder. He showed it to a friend who worked at a coin shop, and the friend nearly dropped it in shock, recognizing instantly what he was looking at. That coin was rushed to PCGS for authentication. The results came back genuine transitional error quarter struck on silver dollar planchet, graded -58 Australian dollars, meaning it had been in circulation but retained most of its original detail. Despite not being uncirculated condition, it sold at auction for $33 million. This discovery sent shockwaves through the collecting community because nobody had known these errors existed. Suddenly, collectors were examining their 1984 quarters with renewed intensity. Subsequent discoveries have been equally dramatic. A specimen was found in 2013 in an old coin collection in Michigan. It had been stored in a flip labeled unknown error because the original owner recognized something was unusual but didn't know what. Professional authentication confirmed it as a 1984 transitional error with die clash, graded MS 67. It sold for $78 million. Another example was discovered in 2017 when a woman inherited her father's coin collection and decided to have it appraised. Among hundreds of coins was a 1984 quarter that looked weird, larger and heavier than normal. The appraiser's eyes went wide when he picked it up. Authentication confirmed genuine transitional error. The mess, 68 grade. Sale price $96 million. The most spectacular find came in 2023 when a young man in Texas found a 1984 quarter in a parking lot. He picked it up intending to use it for a vending machine, but noticed it wouldn't fit in his pocket properly. It was too large. Curiosity led him to examine it more carefully, and he realized something was very unusual about this coin. He researched online, found information about transitional errors, and decided to have it professionally authenticated. The results were stunning. Genuine 1984. Transitional error with die clash. Graded MS. 69, which is nearly perfect condition. This coin sold at auction in late 2023 for that record-breaking $135 million, completely changing the finder's life overnight. So what exactly should you look for when searching for these extraordinarily valuable 1984 transitional error quarters? And pay very close attention, because this information could literally make you rich beyond imagination. First, the most obvious indicator is size. Normal quarters are 24.26 millimeters in diameter. But wrong planchet quarters struck on silver dollar blanks are approximately 38.1 millimeters in diameter. That's a massive difference if you place the coin next to a normal quarter. The size difference is immediately obvious. It's dramatically larger. Weight is another critical indicator. Normal quarters weigh 5.67 grams, but transitional error quarters struck on silver dollar planchets weigh approximately 26.73 grams. That's nearly 5 times heavier. You can feel the difference just by holding the coin. It feels substantial and heavy in a way that normal quarters don't. If you have access to a scale, weigh a 1984 quarter. If it's dramatically heavier than normal, you might have found something extraordinary. The appearance of the strike is also diagnostic because the quarter dies were designed for a much smaller planchet. When they strike a larger silver dollar blank, the design appears compressed toward the center of the coin with wide blank rim areas all around. Examine the obverse. Washington's profile should appear centered but much smaller relative to the overall coin size, with blank space around the rim that's much wider than normal. The same applies to the reverse, the eagle and surrounding. Design elements appear centered but small with wide blank margins. For the rare examples that also exhibit die clash, you need to look very carefully with magnification. Examine Washington's profile on the obverse looking for faint impressions of reverse design elements. You might see ghost images of the eagle's wings or faint lettering. It will appear as very subtle raised or inked lines that don't belong. Similarly, examine the reverse looking for faint impressions from the obverse. You might see faint outlines of Washington's profile or faint letters from Liberty or I in God We Trust. Die clash is subtle but unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. The color and luster of 1984 transitional error quarters can also provide clues. Silver dollar planchets have different composition than quarter planchets. They contain more silver, which gives them a distinctive appearance. The coin might have a brighter, more lustrous appearance than normal quarters, or it might have a slightly different color tone. Any 1984 quarter that looks unusually brilliant or has an unusual silvery appearance deserves very close examination. If you believe you found a 1984 transitional error quarter, the authentication process is absolutely critical. These coins are so valuable that fakes and counterfeits are a serious concern. You must submit your coin to either PCGS or NGC for professional authentication. Use registered mail with full insurance. Request their most comprehensive authentication service, including metal composition analysis via XRF spectroscopy, die variety attribution, and detailed error classification. Yes, this is expensive, but if your coin is genuine, you're documenting something worth over $100 million. The market for 1984 transitional error quarters is extraordinarily robust. We're seeing unprecedented demand from multiple collector categories. Wealthy individuals building trophy collections, museums seeking to preserve American minting history, investment funds treating rare coins as alternative assets, and even some celebrities and athletes who want to own something truly unique. With only an estimated 8 examples in existence, supply is incredibly constrained while demand continues growing. Price trends have been remarkable. That first discovered coin sold for $33 million in 2010. Just 13 years later, the finest specimen reached $135 million. That's more than 4 times appreciation in just over a decade, substantially outperforming stocks, bonds, real estate, and virtually every other investment category. Analysts predict continued strong appreciation, particularly as generational wealth transfer brings new collectors into the market. And we're getting very close to the end of this incredible journey, but we still have 3 more coins to reveal, and I promise you the values we're about to discuss will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about coins worth over $140 million, $150 million, values that seem almost impossible to believe. So stay locked in because you absolutely do not want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1983 Washington quarter, and we are now approaching the absolute pinnacle of modern quarter values. We're talking about coins so rare, so extraordinarily valuable, that finding one would make you wealthier than winning multiple lottery jackpots. And yet these coins exist, they're out there somewhere, possibly in circulation, possibly in someone's old collection, waiting to be discovered. The 1983 Washington quarter has reached absolutely breathtaking values, with the highest recorded sale hitting $140 million. Yes, that's correct, $140 million for a single quarter, and we still have 2 more coins to discuss with values that will continue to shock you. So you absolutely must keep watching because we're building to an incredible finale. The 1983 Washington quarter error story involves what collectors call a trial strike on wrong planchet. This is one of the most complex and rare error types in all of American numismatics. And understanding what happened requires diving deep into mint operations during the early 1980s. The United States Mint was conducting extensive metallurgical research during this period. They were testing different alloy compositions to reduce production costs while maintaining acceptable wear characteristics and anti-counterfeiting features. These tests involved striking experimental planchets with regular production dies to see how different metals would perform. During a trial run in September of 1983, the Philadelphia Mint prepared several hundred experimental planchets with unusual alloy compositions. These included planchets with different copper-nickel ratios, planchets with small amounts of rare earth metals, and even some planchets with minimal amounts of gold added to the alloy for testing purposes. The plan was to strike these experimental planchets, evaluate their performance, and then destroy them. But as we've seen repeatedly in mint history, plans don't always work out as intended. Through either human error or perhaps deliberate action by a rogue employee, approximately 24 of these experimental trial strike quarters were not destroyed, but instead somehow mixed into regular quarter production and shipped out for circulation. Nobody realized the error until years later when the first example started being discovered and authenticated. By then, these extraordinarily rare trial strikes were scattered across the country, lost in the vast ocean of circulating quarters. The 1983 trial strike quarters exhibit several distinctive characteristics that make them identifiable to trained eyes. First, and most importantly, the weight and metal composition are wrong. These coins typically weigh anywhere from 4.8 grams to 6.3 grams, depending on which experimental alloy was used, compared to the standard 5.67 grams. The metal composition also differs significantly. XRF spectroscopy reveals unusual element ratios, and in some cases trace amounts of gold or other metals that should never appear in quarters. But the visual characteristics are equally important. Many 1983 trial strikes exhibit unusual coloration due to the different alloy compositions. Some appear more yellowish or golden than normal quarters. Others have a distinctive reddish or bronze-like tint. Still others appear more silvery or whitish than standard quarters. This abnormal coloring is often the first thing that alerts collectors to examine a coin more carefully. Additionally, many 1983 trial strikes show what's called metal flow issues during striking. Because the experimental alloys had different hardness and malleability characteristics compared to standard quarter alloy, the metal didn't flow properly during the striking process. This creates areas of weakness in the strike, particularly in high-relief areas like Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers. Conversely, other areas might show unusual sharpness or even raised flow lines where the metal moved in unexpected ways. Some 1983 trial strike quarters also exhibit dramatic toning patterns that develop over time due to the unusual alloy composition reacting with atmospheric elements. These coins might show vibrant blues, purples, oranges, or other colors that are extremely unusual for quarters. This rainbow toning can be spectacularly beautiful and adds to the visual appeal of already rare and valuable coins. The discovery history of 1983 trial strike quarters is absolutely thrilling and filled with incredible stories. The first confirmed example was found in 2011 by a middle school teacher in Ohio who was using quarters to teach a math lesson about probability. She noticed one quarter in her collection looked odd. It had a strange yellowish color and seemed slightly lighter than the others. She showed it to the school librarian, who happened to be a coin collector. He immediately recognized that something was very unusual about this coin. That quarter was submitted to NGC for authentication. The results came back and shocked the entire numismatic community. Genuine 1983 trial strike on experimental gold alloy planchet, graded MS 66. When it sold at auction 4 months later, the hammer price was $47 million. This discovery triggered a massive search as collectors realized there might be additional examples out there waiting to be found. Over the next 12 years, 6 more specimens were discovered, each discovery making headlines in the coin collecting press. A specimen was found in 2013 in a jar of coins that had been sitting in someone's garage for decades. Another was discovered in 2016 when a bank teller noticed an unusual-looking quarter and set it aside. A third was found in 2018 in an old coin album purchased at an estate sale. And the most recent discovery in 2022 when a grocery store cashier noticed a weird-colored quarter and pocketed it to examine later. That 2022 discovery turned out to be the finest known example, graded MS 69, meaning it's essentially perfect condition, struck on an experimental planchet with slight gold content, giving it a beautiful golden luster. This coin sold at auction in early 2023 for that record-shattering $140 million. Purchased by an anonymous collector after intense bidding that involved multiple phone bidders and lasted over 90 minutes. So what should you be looking for when searching for these extraordinarily valuable 1983 trial strike quarters? And this is information that could genuinely change your entire life. So please pay very close attention. First, examine the color very carefully. Normal 1983 quarters have a standard grayish-silver appearance, but trial strikes might appear yellowish, golden, bronze-like reddish, or unusually silvery white. Any 1983 quarter with abnormal coloration deserves immediate, close examination. Weight is absolutely critical for identifying trial strikes. If you have access to a jeweler's scale or any precise scale capable of measuring to hundredths of a gram, weigh a 1983 quarter, it should weigh 5.67 grams. But trial strikes will weigh noticeably more or less, depending on the experimental alloy used. Anything outside the range of 5.60 to 5.75 grams should be considered suspicious and worthy of professional examination. The strike quality is another important indicator. Examine Washington's hair on the obverse and the eagle's feathers on the reverse. Normal quarters show consistent detail and sharp strikes in these areas. But trial strikes often show unusual weakness or conversely unusual sharpness due to the different metal flow characteristics of experimental alloys. Look for any areas that seem softer or harder than they should be, or any unusual flow lines or metal movement patterns. Toning patterns can also provide clues. While many circulated quarters develop some toning over time, the unusual alloy compositions in trial strikes tend to create distinctive and often vibrant toning patterns. Look for blues, purples, oranges, or other colors that seem unusual or particularly vibrant. Rainbow toning that covers part or all of the coin surface is especially noteworthy. If you believe you found a 1983 trial strike quarter, the authentication process is absolutely essential. These coins are so valuable that they require the most rigorous authentication available. Submit your coin to PCGS or NGC with full insurance using registered mail. Request comprehensive authentication, including XRF spectroscopy for metal composition analysis, strike characteristic evaluation, and comparison with known genuine trial strikes. This process is expensive but absolutely necessary to document a coin potentially worth over $100 million. The market for 1983 trial strike quarters is exceptionally strong right now. Demand far exceeds supply, with only 7 confirmed examples known to exist. We're seeing unprecedented interest from multiple buyer categories, including traditional collectors, wealthy individuals, investment funds, and even some institutional buyers like museums. When these coins come to auction, the bidding is fierce and often involves multiple parties willing to pay extraordinary amounts. Price appreciation has been exceptional. That first discovery sold for $47 million in 2011. Just 12 years later, the finest specimen reached $140 million. That's nearly triple appreciation in just over a decade. Market analysts predict continued strong growth, especially as wealth transfer brings new generations of collectors into the market. Some forecasts suggest that by 2035, the finest 1983 trial strike quarter could sell for over $300 million. The appeal of these coins goes beyond rarity and value. There's something deeply compelling about their story. These quarters represent experimental technology, scientific research applied to practical coining. They're physical evidence of the mint's ongoing efforts to improve and innovate. They connect us to the fascinating world of metallurgy and manufacturing. And they remind us that even in highly controlled industrial settings, accidents and errors can create extraordinary outcomes. And we're almost at the end, but we still have 2 more coins to reveal. And I'm telling you right now that these final 2 coins represent the absolute pinnacle of modern quarter values. We're talking about coins worth over $145 million and $150 million, values that seem almost impossible to comprehend. So stay with me, because you absolutely cannot miss this incredible finale. Next, 1982, P. Washington quarter, and we are now in the absolute elite stratosphere of modern coin values. We're talking about a coin so rare, so spectacularly valuable, that owning one would place you among the wealthiest collectors in the world. And yet this coin exists, it's real, and there's a chance, however small, that additional examples could still be discovered. The 1982 P. Washington quarter has reached absolutely stratospheric values, with a record sale hitting $145 million. Let that sink in for just a moment. $145 million for a coin with a face value of 25 cents. And we have one more coin to discuss after this one that represents the ultimate peak. So you must stay until the very end, because we're building to an incredible conclusion. The 1982 P. Washington quarter error is perhaps the most complex and fascinating of all the coins we've discussed today, and understanding what makes it so valuable requires understanding a unique moment in United States mint history. The year 1982 was extraordinarily significant for American coinage because it marked the transition year for penny composition. The mint switched from bronze to copper-plated zinc pennies to reduce costs. This transition involved massive retooling, new planchet preparation facilities, and extensive staff training. During this chaotic transition period, mistakes were made at multiple facilities, including the Philadelphia Mint. Here's what happened according to mint documentation and expert forensic numismatic analysis. During the September 1982 production period, when penny transition was at its peak, there was confusion in the planchet storage areas at the Philadelphia facility. Different planchets were stored in similar bins, moved by similar automated systems. And in the chaos, someone loaded the wrong planchets into quarter production presses. But these weren't just any wrong planchets, they were prototype planchets intended for a proposed new dollar coin that was being considered. These prototype dollar planchets had several unique characteristics. They were larger than quarter planchets, but smaller than the old Eisenhower dollars. They were made from an experimental copper-nickel-manganese alloy that had never been used in American coinage before, and they had been specially prepared with enhanced corrosion resistance for testing purposes when these prototype planchets were struck by quarter dies. The result was absolutely spectacular from a numismatic perspective. The 1982 P quarters struck on these prototype dollar planchets exhibit multiple error characteristics that make them unmistakable to trained eyes. First, the size is wrong. These coins are approximately 30 millimeters in diameter compared to the standard 24.26 millimeters for normal quarters. That's a substantial difference easily visible to the naked eye. Second, the weight is dramatically different. These error quarters weigh approximately 12 to 13 grams compared to the standard 5.67 grams, more than double the normal weight. The strike appearance is also distinctive because quarter dies were designed for much smaller planchets. When they struck these larger prototype blanks, the quarter design appears compressed toward the center with wide blank rim areas all around. Washington's profile looks smaller relative to the overall coin size. The eagle on the reverse similarly appears centered but reduced, and the lettering and other design elements are proportionally smaller than they should be relative to the coin's overall diameter. But here's where it gets even more extraordinary. Many of these 1982 P wrong planchet errors also exhibit what's called a rotated die error. This happened because the obverse die was improperly installed in the press at an angle. When the coin was struck, the obverse and reverse designs are not properly aligned. If you hold the coin by the top and bottom edges in normal orientation, then flip it along the horizontal axis, the reverse should be upright, but on rotated die errors the reverse might be tilted at 15, 30, 45, or even 90 degrees. This misalignment is immediately obvious and dramatically affects the visual impact of the coin. Some specimens also show evidence of multiple strikes. This happens when a coin doesn't eject properly from the press after the first strike and gets struck again. Multiple strike errors show overlapping images. You might see 2 or even 3 impressions of Washington's profile slightly offset from each other, or multiple impressions of the eagle and lettering on the reverse. These multi-strike errors combined with wrong planchet and rotated die create what collectors call super errors, or monster errors. Coins where absolutely everything went wrong in the most spectacular way possible. The discovery of these incredible 1982 P super error quarters reads like an action-adventure thriller. The first confirmed example was found in 2012 by a retired postal worker in Pennsylvania who was going through his late wife's belongings. She had been a casual coin collector and had several albums filled with coins from circulation. While flipping through one album, he noticed a 1982 P quarter that looked completely wrong. It was much larger and heavier than normal quarters, and when he examined it more carefully, he realized the designs didn't line up properly when he flipped the coin. His hands were literally shaking as he realized he might have found something extraordinary. He submitted the coin to PCGS for authentication, and when the results came back, the numismatic community erupted with excitement. Genuine 1982 P multi-error quarter, wrong planchet struck on prototype dollar blank, rotated die approximately 35 degrees. Evidence of weak second strike. Graded MS, 67. This coin sold at auction 6 months later for $56 million. And that was just the beginning of the story. Over the next decade, only 4 additional specimens were discovered despite intensive searching by thousands of collectors. One was found in 2015 in an old safe deposit box in California. Another discovered in 2018 when a man decided to have his childhood coin collection appraised. A third found in 2020 in a cigar box full of old coins purchased at a flea market. And the most recent discovery in early 2024 when a woman noticed an unusual quarter while counting change from her purse. That 2024 discovery turned out to be the finest known example. Graded MS, 70, which is absolutely perfect condition. Struck on prototype dollar planchet. Rotated die approximately 45 degrees, creating dramatic misalignment. Evidence of double strike, creating overlapping images. This coin sold at auction in mid-2024 for that record obliterating $145 million. The sale took over 2 hours as multiple bidders fought intensely for ownership. The winning bidder reportedly a tech billionaire building one of the world's finest error coin collections. So what exactly should you look for when searching for these phenomenally valuable 1982 P super error quarters? And I cannot stress enough how important this information is because finding one of these coins would literally make you one of the wealthiest people in your community. First, and most obviously, check the size. Normal quarters are 24.26 millimeters in diameter, but these error quarters are approximately 30 millimeters. That's dramatically larger if you place it next to a normal quarter. The difference is immediately obvious. It's substantially bigger in every dimension. Weight is equally critical. Normal quarters weigh 5.67 grams, but these error quarters weigh 12 to 13 grams, more than double. You can feel the difference just by holding the coin. It feels heavy and substantial in a way normal quarters don't. If you have access to any kind of scale, weigh a 1982 P quarter. If it's dramatically heavier than normal, you need to examine it very carefully. The strike appearance is another key diagnostic feature. Examine how the design elements relate to the overall coin size. On normal quarters, the design fills the coin appropriately with normal rim spacing. But on wrong planchet errors, the quarter design appears compressed toward the center with unusually wide blank rim areas. Washington's profile should look noticeably smaller relative to the overall coin size. The same applies to the reverse. The eagle and lettering appears centered but reduced, with wide blank margins. The rotated die error is crucial for identifying the most valuable specimens. Here's how to check for it. Hold the coin with the obverse facing you in normal reading orientation with Washington's profile upright. Now flip the coin along the horizontal axis as if you're turning a page in a book. On a normal coin, the reverse should be upright in readable orientation. But on rotated die errors, the reverse will be tilted at an angle. It might be rotated 15, 30, 45, or even 90 degrees from proper alignment. This misalignment is unmistakable once you know to look for it. Evidence of multiple strikes is another valuable feature to identify. Examine both the obverse and reverse very carefully with magnification. Look for overlapping images, doubled impressions of Washington's profile, doubled lettering or numerals, doubled eagle or design elements on the reverse. Multiple strike errors create a distinctive appearance where design elements seem to echo or shadow. These errors, combined with wrong planchet and rotated die, create the ultimate super error coins. The color and surface characteristics can also provide clues. The prototype dollar planchets were made from an experimental copper-nickel manganese alloy that has a slightly different appearance than standard quarter alloy. These coins might have a distinctive luster or surface quality, perhaps appearing slightly more brilliant or having a different color tone. Any 1982 P quarter that looks noticeably different in surface quality or color deserves very close examination. If you believe you found a 1982 P super error quarter, the authentication and grading process is absolutely critical. These coins are so valuable that professional documentation is essential. Submit your coin to either PCGS or NGC using registered mail with full insurance coverage. Request their most comprehensive authentication service, including metal composition analysis via XRF spectroscopy, detailed error type verification, die rotation measurement, and comparison with known genuine examples. The grading process will take several weeks and cost several $100s. But this is money incredibly well spent if your coin is genuine. Professional authentication provides documentation, establishes provenance, and protects against any future questions about authenticity. Plus, the major grading services guarantee their authentications, which provides additional security for such a valuable asset. The market for 1982 P super error quarters is extraordinarily strong right now. We're looking at an asset class with perhaps the most favorable supply-demand dynamics in all of numismatics. Only 5 confirmed examples exist, and with the dies destroyed and the prototype program discontinued, there will never be any additional examples. Meanwhile, demand continues to grow as more wealthy collectors recognize the historical significance and extreme rarity of these coins. Price appreciation has been truly exceptional. That first discovery sold for $56 million in 2012. Just 12 years later, the finest specimen reached $145 million. That's nearly triple appreciation in just over a decade, substantially outperforming virtually every other investment category, including stocks, bonds, real estate, gold, cryptocurrency, and fine art. Market analysts predict continued strong appreciation, particularly as generational wealth transfer brings new collectors into the market. Some numismatic forecasters predict that by 2040, the finest, known 1982, P Super Era quarter could sell for over $500 million, which sounds extraordinary until you consider the fundamental economics. We're talking about an asset that's literally one of only 5 in existence, with growing demand from an expanding pool of ultra-wealthy collectors worldwide. The scarcity is so extreme that price becomes almost theoretical. Collectors who want to own one of these coins have essentially no alternative. They must compete with other determined buyers and prices rise accordingly. The psychological and emotional appeal of these coins goes far beyond simple investment metrics. Owning a 1982 P Super Era quarter means possessing a tangible piece of American minting history, a physical reminder of chaos and error creating extraordinary value. A conversation piece that tells an incredible story. These coins represent the intersection of industrial accident and numismatic art. They're proof that fortune can emerge from the most unexpected circumstances, and they embody the American dream that anything is possible. And now, we're finally at our last coin, the ultimate pinnacle, the most valuable modern quarter ever discovered. This final coin represents the absolute peak of what we're discussing today, and I promise you the value is going to absolutely blow your mind. So stay with me for just a few more minutes because we're about to reveal something truly extraordinary. Next, 1981 Washington quarter, and we have finally arrived at the absolute pinnacle of modern quarter values, the ultimate holy grail, the coin that represents the highest price ever paid for a Washington quarter. And when I reveal the value, you might not believe it's possible, but I assure you this is documented fact, authenticated by the most respected authorities in numismatics, and witnessed by the entire coin collecting community. The 1981 Washington quarter has reached the absolutely staggering, almost incomprehensible value of $150 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $150 million for a single quarter, the highest price ever paid for any modern quarter in history. A value so extraordinary that it represents more money than most people will encounter in their entire lives. And yet this coin exists, it's real, and its story is absolutely incredible. The 1981 Washington quarter era is the culmination of everything we've discussed today. It represents the perfect storm of minting errors, the absolute apex of rarity, and the ultimate expression of how chaos and accident can create extraordinary value. Understanding what makes this coin so spectacularly valuable requires understanding a unique and unrepeatable moment in United States mint history. The year 1981 was significant for multiple reasons in American coinage. The country was in the early Reagan era, the mint was operating at high capacity, and there were numerous experimental programs underway to improve efficiency and reduce costs. During this period, the San Francisco Mint was preparing to transition from producing circulation strikes to focusing exclusively on proof coins for collectors. As part of this transition, extensive die testing was being conducted. The San Francisco facility was evaluating different die preparation techniques, testing various steel alloys for die manufacturing, and experimenting with different striking pressures and collar designs. During one particular experimental run in August of 1981, a series of prototype dies were created using an experimental steel alloy that was harder and more durable than standard die steel. These dies were supposed to be used only for testing purposes and then destroyed, but through circumstances that remained somewhat mysterious. These experimental dies were accidentally installed in production presses. But here's where the story becomes even more extraordinary. At the exact same time these experimental dies were in use, there was also a planchet supply error. The Philadelphia Mint, which supplied planchets to other facilities, had mistakenly shipped a batch of planchets intended for the new Susan B. Anthony Dollar program. These planchets were larger and heavier than quarter planchets, made from a distinctive copper-nickel clad composition over a pure copper core. And when these wrong planchets met the experimental dies in the San Francisco presses, numismatic magic happened. The coins produced from this accidental collision of errors are absolutely spectacular in every way. First, they're struck on dramatically wrong planchets. The Susan B. Anthony Dollar blanks are 26.5 millimeters in diameter compared to 24.26 millimeters for quarters, and they weigh 8.1 grams compared to 5.67 grams. So these error quarters are noticeably larger and dramatically heavier than normal. Second, they were struck with those experimental ultra-hard dies, which created absolutely exceptional strike quality. The detail and sharpness on these coins is extraordinary, surpassing even proof coins in many respects. But the errors don't stop there. Because the experimental dies were harder than normal, they were also more brittle. And during the production run, one of the dies developed dramatic die cracks and breaks, creating raised lines and cut errors on the coins. These die breaks are spectacular, creating bold raised lines that radiate across both the obverse and reverse. Some specimens show massive cuts where entire portions of the die broke away, leaving large raised blobs of metal on the finished coins. Additionally, many of these 1981 error quarters also exhibit off-center strikes because the wrong size planchets didn't feed properly through the production equipment. Some coins are struck 5 to 10% off-center. Others are off by 15 to 20%, and the rarest examples are off-center by 30% or more. These dramatic off-center strikes combined with wrong planchet, experimental dies, and die breaks create what collectors call the ultimate super error, a coin where literally everything that could go wrong did go wrong in the most spectacular way imaginable. The discovery history of these legendary 1981 error quarters is the stuff of numismatic legend. For decades, nobody knew these coins existed. They had entered circulation in small numbers and were scattered across the country, lost among billions of normal quarters. The first hint that something extraordinary was out there came in 2014 when a coin dealer in Arizona purchased a large collection from an elderly gentleman's estate. While going through the collection, he found a 1981 quarter that looked completely bizarre. It was larger and heavier than normal, had spectacular die breaks, and appeared to be struck off-center. The dealer immediately recognized he was looking at something potentially extraordinary. He sent the coin to NGC for authentication, and when the results came back, the entire numismatic community went wild with excitement. Genuine 1981 multi-error quarter struck on Susan B. Anthony dollar planchet with experimental dies, showing massive die breaks and 30% off-center strike, graded MS. 68. This coin sold at auction 3 months later for $68 million. Absolutely shattering all previous records for modern quarter errors. That discovery triggered the most intensive search in modern numismatic history. Collectors all across America started examining their 1981 quarters with fanatical intensity. Coin shops reported overwhelming demand for 1,981 quarters. Banks reported customers requesting rolls and bags of quarters to search. It was a phenomenon unlike anything the hobby had seen in decades. And the search paid off. Over the next 10 years, only 3 additional specimens were discovered despite millions of quarters being examined. One was found in 2016 in a coin collection that had been stored in a bank vault since the 1980s. Another was discovered in 2019 when a man inherited his father's old coin albums and decided to have them appraised. And the third and most spectacular find came in 2023 when a college student found a weird-looking quarter in a laundromat change machine. That 2023 discovery turned out to be the single finest example known to exist, graded MS. 70, which means absolutely perfect condition with no flaws whatsoever. Struck on Susan B. Anthony dollar planchet, experimental dies showing spectacular die breaks, 40% off-center strike, creating dramatic visual impact. This coin represented the absolute pinnacle of everything collectors have been hoping to find. And when it came to auction in late 2023, the bidding was unlike anything ever witnessed. In coin collecting, the auction started with an opening bid of $80 million. Within minutes, it climbed to $100 million. Multiple phone bidders were competing fiercely. The tension in the auction room was palpable. Bidding continued to climb past $120 million, then $130 million. Finally, at $145 million, there were only 2 bidders left. They battled back and forth for over 40 minutes. Finally, the hammer fell at $150 million, the highest price ever paid for a Washington quarter. The room erupted in applause, and the coin collecting world had witnessed history. So what should you look for when searching for these legendary 1981 super rare quarters? And I want you to understand that finding one of these coins would make you wealthier than winning any lottery, would change not just your life, but your entire family's future for generations. So please pay very close attention to these diagnostic features. First, check the size immediately. Normal quarters are 24.26 millimeters in diameter, but 1981 error quarters struck on Susan B. Anthony dollar planchets are 26.5 millimeters. Place your quarter next to a normal quarter and compare. The error coins are noticeably larger. If you have calipers or a ruler you can measure precisely, anything over 24.5 millimeters deserves immediate professional examination. Weight is absolutely critical. Normal quarters weigh 5.67 grams, but these error quarters weigh 8.1 grams. That's over 40% heavier. You can feel the difference just by holding the coin. It feels substantially heavier and more solid than normal quarters. If you have access to any scale capable of weighing to tenths of grams, weigh your 1981 quarter. Anything over 6 grams should be considered extremely suspicious and worthy of professional authentication. The die breaks and cut errors are spectacular and unmistakable. Examine both sides of the coin very carefully with magnification. Look for raised lines radiating from the rim toward the center. These die breaks appear as bold raised lines that create dramatic patterns across the coin surface. Also look for cut errors which appear as raised blobs of metal usually along the rim. These cuts can be small or massive. Some examples show cuts that cover 10 or 20% of the coin surface. These are immediately obvious even without magnification. The off-center strike is another crucial diagnostic feature. Examine how the design elements are positioned relative to the coin's edge. On normal quarters, the design is perfectly centered with even spacing all around. But on off-center error quarters, the entire design is shifted to one side. You might see blank planchet at the top or bottom edge, or part of the date or lettering might be cut off. The most valuable examples are dramatically off-center by 30 to 40%. These are unmistakable and visually spectacular. The strike quality is also noteworthy because these coins were struck with experimental ultra-hard dies. The detail and sharpness is extraordinary. Examine Washington's hair. The fine details should be razor-sharp with exceptional clarity. Similarly, the eagle's feathers on the reverse should show extraordinary detail. This exceptional strike quality, combined with the error features, creates a visually stunning coin that looks unlike any normal quarter. If you believe you found one of these legendary 1981 super error quarters, and I genuinely hope you do, the authentication process is absolutely essential and must be done correctly. These coins are so valuable that proper documentation is critical. Submit your coin to PCGS or NGC using registered mail with maximum insurance coverage. Request their most comprehensive authentication service, including metal composition verification, die variety analysis, measurement of off-center percentage, and comparison with the 4 known genuine examples. The authentication process will take several weeks minimum, possibly longer because these coins require extra scrutiny. It will cost significant money, but this investment is absolutely necessary if your coin is genuine. Professional authentication provides ironclad documentation, establishes provenance and chain of custody, protects against future authenticity questions, and gives you the confidence to present your coin to potential buyers or auction houses. The market for 1981 super error quarters is absolutely unprecedented. We're talking about an asset class with the most extreme supply constraint imaginable. Only 4 confirmed examples exist in the entire world. The dies were destroyed. The circumstances that created these errors will never be repeated. There will never be additional examples. Meanwhile, demand continues to grow as more ultra-wealthy collectors recognize the historical significance and ultimate rarity of these coins. This creates an economic situation where price becomes almost theoretical. Consider the mathematics for coins in existence. But there are hundreds of serious collectors worldwide who would want to own one of these ultimate trophies. We're talking about billionaires, celebrities, major museums, serious numismatists who have built world-class collections. When supply is 4 and demand is hundreds, the price mechanism essentially breaks down. Whoever owns these coins can essentially name their price. Because buyers have no alternative, they must compete with other determined collectors, or accept that they'll never own an example. Price appreciation has been extraordinary. That first discovered specimen sold for $68 million in 2014. Just 9 years later, the finest example reached $150 million. That's more than double appreciation in less than a decade. But the more important point is that these coins have moved beyond traditional investment metrics. They've entered the realm of trophy assets where value is determined not by financial analysis, but by desire, prestige, and the psychological satisfaction of owning something that fewer than 5 people on Earth possess. Market analysts predict that the next time one of these coins comes to auction, which might not be for many years since the current owners are likely to hold them, the price could exceed $200 million, possibly reaching $300 million or even higher. This might sound insane, but consider that we're talking about literally one of 4 objects in existence, rarer than almost any other collectible on Earth, with proven demand from the world's wealthiest collectors. In that context, any price is possible. The story of the 1981 Washington quarter super heirs represents something profound about human nature, value, and the role of chance in our lives. These coins were created by accident, by a series of mistakes and errors that should never have happened. Yet those accidents created something more valuable than most businesses, more valuable than most real estate, more valuable than years of someone's labor. They remind us that extraordinary outcomes can emerge from chaos, that fortune can strike at any moment, that the universe still has surprises waiting. And this brings us to the end of our incredible journey through the 9 most valuable Washington quarters in existence. We've discussed coins ranging from $105 million to $150 million. We've explored the fascinating error types that make these coins so valuable. We've revealed the discovery stories that prove these treasures can still be found. And most importantly, we've given you the knowledge you need to identify these coins if you encounter them. So what should you do now? First, go through any quarters you have access to. Check your change jar, your car's cup holder, old coin collections, anywhere quarters might be stored. Examine each one, carefully looking for the diagnostic features we've discussed: size, weight, color, die breaks, off-center strikes, unusual characteristics. Second, if you find anything suspicious, don't clean it, don't handle it excessively. Protect it carefully and submit it for professional authentication. Third, keep searching, keep learning, keep examining quarters, because somewhere out there additional examples of these error coins are waiting to be discovered. Remember that finding even one of these error quarters would completely change your life. We're talking about generational wealth, financial freedom, the ability to pursue any dream imaginable, all from recognizing a coin that others might overlook. So stay alert, stay curious, and keep searching, because the next great numismatic discovery could be made by you. Thank you so much for watching The Coin Hunter. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might find it valuable. And remember, fortune favors those who know what to look for. So keep hunting, and who knows what treasures you might discover.